The house was started in 1703. A gentleman by the name of James Bowles came from England and started building the first of the original 2 rooms of the house. It was known as Bowles Separation at that time. James Bowles lived in the home from 1703 until 1727. He built the first 2 rooms with an unfinished loft. Then he added a 3rd room, which was complete by 1715. It has a full brick basement, cellar underneath it, and he put a partial bedroom upstairs. After his death in 1727, his wife, his widow, Rebecca Addison Bowles, actually married a gentleman from Annapolis by the name of George Plater II. George II owned the home from 1729 until 1755. We don't know of a lot of additions or changes to the house during that period of time. They did have 5 children. Their oldest son, George Plater III, actually took ownership of the home in 1755. He is the gentleman that turned the house from basically a 4-room house into the 10-room mansion that it is today. He extended the first of the room, and we call that the withdrawing room, raised the ceiling, put all of the beautiful woodwork that you will see inside the house. He also added what we currently have set up as a dining room, completed all the loft area. There are 5 finished bedrooms upstairs and 5 rooms downstairs. George Plater IV assumed the plantation in 1792 after his father's death, and he owned the home for only 10 years after his dad died. Then young George Plater V, in 1802 until 1822, was the owner of Sotterley. Young George V, not quite 7 years old when his father died, took ownership of the house from 1802 until it was sold in 1822. George had a guardian that took care of the property and was George's guardian as well as his half-sister Anne. There was a lot of debt that was acquired against the house, and we believe it was about $27,000 that was acquired against the house known as Sotterley. Colonel Somerville purchased the home in 1822. He only owned the property for 1 year, sold it to a Mr. Thomas Barber. Thomas Barber owned the property from 1823 until his death in 1826. He left the home and the property to his daughters. Emmeline married Dr. Walter Hanscom Stone Briscoe. The Briscoe family owned the home from 1826 until basically 1910 when their granddaughter sold it. Emmeline died in 1887. At that time, her son purchased the property, and he owned the property from 1887 till 1904. 1904 to 1910, the granddaughter Elizabeth Cashner owned the property. She sold it in 1910 to a family by the name of Herbert and Louisa Satterley. The Satterleys made all the major changes that you will see to the house. They are responsible for the colonial revival movement that happened here in the early 20th century. They went in, the house was on the verge of collapsing, and through their restoration is what saved the home. They did a lot of major changes, both inside and exterior of the home. They also added all the colonial revival gardens. The site, the way you see it today, is primarily a result of what they did to the home. Mabel Satterley Ingalls. She purchased the property from her parents' estate, and she maintained a residence at Sotterley. She owned it from about 1947 until her death in 1993. In the early 1960s, Mabel Satterley Ingalls started the Sotterley Mansion Foundation Fund. It was a private, not-for-profit organization, and after her death, she left the house with 25 acres, no trust fund, no endowment. So shortly after her death, the doors of Sotterley were closed, and there was talk of placing the home on the market. Through through Save America's Treasures in 1996, the house was placed on the 11 most endangered homes in America list. Through Save America's Treasures, Sotterley was able to apply for funding. For the past 10 years, there's been major restoration going on. We've made a lot of changes to the house. We feel that we have stabilized her. She currently has a new roof. She has a geothermal climate control system, sprinkler system, alarm system, and a lot of termite damage has been repaired. Currently, we are known as Historic Sotterley Foundation, which is a nonprofit. We basically get our operating expenses from major fundraisers that are held throughout the year, and also membership. Enslaved labor force, or the labor force that actually constructed the staircase. It was placed in the house in 1760. It was quite a unique thing to have in a home the size of Sotterley. In-ground post. What you're looking at is the type of construction that was very popular in the Tidewater Chesapeake area in the early 18th century. It was the cheapest, quickest form of construction. Basically, you clear the land, dig a hole 3 feet in the ground, you put a trunk of a cypress tree, and that tree goes all the way up to the roof line. It was a very fast, easy way of constructing a home. The shell alcoves and all of the woodwork in the drawing room was also designed by that same gentleman, Richard Bolton. Of course, the enslaved labor force are the ones that created the work. The dentil molding and the shell alcoves, as well as the Greek keywork around the fireplace, are all hand carved. The self-rising hinges are a unique thing to have in the home, especially the size of Sotterley. They're designed so that if you open the door and there's a rug, the door will automatically raise, and when you close the door, it automatically lowers. This served several purposes. One, it would keep the drafts out, and it also will save on the wear and tear of your rugs. The closets are very unique in a colonial home. Typically, they did not put closets in colonial homes because there was a luxury tax imposed by the Crown. If you had a closet, you were taxed accordingly to how many doors in your home, also panes of glass, and a closet was considered an additional room. Here at Sotterley, James Bowles, the original builder of the home, put a closet in every room that he built, but he was the tax collector for the Crown. He did not report his closets, so therefore he did not pay taxes on them. The gatehouses, the one located to the left, we have set up the way a one-room schoolhouse would have been. The south gatehouse, the house that would be to your right, was built by the Sotterleys in the early 20th century. The necessary dates we know to at least the 1830. If you go over and take a look at it, it's upscale. It has 3 holes. And if you look to the corner, you'll see a box. You'll find corn cobs, and that was what was used as toilet paper in colonial days. Our slave cabin is one of several that was on what we consider the rolling road. It was built about 1830. It's a 16 by 18 building. It would house 16 to 24 slaves. The same number of people lived in that one-room cabin that would have lived in the main house. Smokehouse was built approximately 1830, 1840s. Look inside, you will see the big tub that's to the left of the door, and that trough is used to put the meat in. They would put all kinds of spices, salts, and that would preserve the meat. The gardens are Mr. Satterley's colonial revival gardens. They're divided into 3 different categories. The first are the herbs, and they are also divided into 3. There would be the medicinal herbs, the aromatic herbs, and of course the seasoning herbs. Vegetables are just the other side of the boxwoods. The third part of the garden, of course, are the beautiful flowers, and there's always something in bloom here at Sotterley. For well over 200 years, this was a honey-producing plantation as well.